You ever stop and think about who's actually keeping the lights on in our super connected digital world? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the biggest players in the game, American Electric Power, or AEP. We're diving deep into their latest financial report to see what's really going on, what challenges they're facing, and wow, their massive plans for the future. Okay, let's get into it.
Think about it. Every time you stream a movie, every AI search you do, all of that creates these mountains of data that need just incredible amounts of power. So, the real question this whole report grapples with is this. How does a huge traditional company like this adapt to power a brand new, power-hungry world? A world that's being built more and more on AI and massive data centers.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to kick things off with the big picture challenge AEP is up against. Then, we'll zoom in on this data center boom that's, believe me, changing everything. After that, we'll try to untangle the crazy web of regulations, look at their huge shift away from old power sources, and finally, the big one, how they're planning to pay for it all.
Okay, so first things first, let's get our bearings. Who exactly is AEP? Well, they aren't just some local company. They're a massive investor-owned public utility, and that means they are an absolutely critical piece of the energy puzzle here in the United States. Their whole job is to keep the power flowing for literally millions of people in states like Ohio, Virginia, Texas, Indiana, you name it. And they handle the whole shebang, from generating the electricity to sending it across those huge high-voltage lines and finally getting it right to your house or to a business. It's a gigantic, unbelievably complex operation, and it is facing some brand new, seriously unprecedented challenges. And that brings us to what is, without a doubt, the single biggest story in this entire report. You see, for years, the amount of electricity we used in the US was, well, it was pretty flat. That has completely changed. AEP is now seeing this incredible surge in demand, and it's all coming from one very specific place.
And boom, there it is, straight from the horse's mouth. The engine driving all this growth is new data processor loads. Now, that's just some corporate jargon for the gigantic data centers that power AI, the cloud, and pretty much our entire digital existence. You know, this isn't just a little blip on the radar. It is a fundamental change in who's using power and just how much they need. This is the new reality.
Now, check this out. This is how AEP is scrambling to respond. This table is showing new, large load tariffs. You can think of them like special pricing plans for brand new giant customers. And just look at those numbers. We're talking about customers wanting 75 or even 150 megawatts of power. To put that in perspective, a single megawatt can power around 750 homes. So yeah, we're talking about single data centers that need as much electricity as a small city. It's wild. But here's the catch. AEP can't just snap its fingers, build a new power plant, and start charging for it. No way. Every single thing they do is wrapped up in this complex world of state and federal rules. It's this constant, tricky balancing act, especially when you're trying to keep up with the sudden, massive appetite of the tech industry.
So a key term you got to understand here is the rate case. What is that? Well, basically, when AEP needs to spend billions on new gear, they have to go to a government commission and, literally make their case for why they need to raise prices to pay for it all. It's this super formal and often pretty heated negotiation. And this timeline just shows you how quickly the entire rulebook can get rewritten. Don't worry about the tiny details here. Just look at the big picture. In just a few months, in 2025, you've got a new state law in Ohio, a federal ruling on taxes, and new federal laws for renewables all hitting at once. Imagine your AEP trying to plan decades ahead. Staying on top of this constant churn is a huge part of the job.
So, all of this brings us to the next huge piece of the puzzle. AEP is right in the middle of this historic pivot. They're moving away from the old power sources that literally built the company, and they're steering toward a completely different energy future.
And just to help you wrap your head around the scale of this, look at this number. Right now, AEP still owns about 10,700 megawatts of coal-fired power plants. That is a colossal amount of old-school power generation that has to be transitioned, both for environmental reasons and, frankly, because a lot of these old plants just aren't as economical anymore.
And you can see that whole transition happening right on this slide. On the left, you've got the old coal fleet. It's aging, it's facing tougher rules, it's on its way out. But on the right, you see what's next: modern gas turbines, renewables, and something really fascinating for those new data centers: solid oxide fuel cells. You can think of these things as like mini, super efficient power plants that can sit right on site, giving that ultra-reliable power that data centers absolutely need, while the main grid gets its upgrade.
And this isn't just some vague future plan, it is happening right now. The Perky plant in Texas, it just retired. The Welsh plant, slated to close in 2028. Northeastern plant, it's on the list too. These aren't just names, they are symbols of a fundamental shift in how America makes its electricity.
So, rebuilding the grid while also meeting a massive new wave of demand, that sounds expensive, right? Well, that leads us to probably the most important question in this whole report. Just how much is this all going to cost? And where on earth is the money going to come from?
Well, here's your answer. Over just 5 years, from 2026 to 2030, AEP is planning to spend $72 billion. I mean, let that sink in. That is a staggering amount of money. It's a massive, massive bet on the future of American energy. And this chart gives us a pretty clear idea of where that cash is headed. You can see the vast majority of it, nearly $60 billion, is getting poured right back into their main utility and transmission businesses. This isn't just speculative spending, this is foundational work to make the grid stronger and build out that new capacity.
So where does $72 billion even come from? Well, it's pretty much the classic corporate finance playbook. They're going to use the cash they make from their regular business operations, they're going to borrow money by taking on long-term debt, and they're going to sell new shares of the company. It's a three-part strategy to fund this once-in-a-generation transformation.
Okay, so let's boil all of that down. What are the big takeaways here? First, the AI and data center explosion is causing a historic spike in demand for power. Second, AEP is playing a constant game of chess with a shifting maze of regulations. Third, they are deep in the middle of a huge pivot away from coal. And finally, they're backing it all up with a planned $72 billion investment.
And all of that leaves us with this one final, really critical question. The demand is definitely real. The need to modernize is absolutely urgent. AEP is placing this enormous bet on the future. But the real tension here is, can they actually build this new, powerful, resilient grid for our digital age without just passing that entire multi-billion-dollar price tag onto everyday customers? That's the story we'll all be watching. Thanks for tuning in.